This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reif Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
It's been hard on the guys. We have all these games left. And when you don't get to practice, your lineup's changing every night. And tonight was abnormally bad. I don't know what happened. It was a tough one. So you played a lot of games in this league. You just got to work your way through it. And but it's been tough. This little rut we're in's lasted a lot longer than I anticipated.
It's a good point. We can give you all the analysis that's possibly out there. I think John Cooper has to believe this team will just work itself out. There is no magic pill for this. And I know it feels like every game is a struggle. Brian Engblom brought up the point last night, and this is Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. Greg Linnelli with you, along with the radio voice of Lightning, Dave Mishkin, that you can't really compare or say we need to get back to when we were 21-1 because, that is in the rearview mirror. And are there things that you can take from there to apply now? Sure. But you have to look at what's present. What are you working with right now? Because they are out of sync. And however you want to analyze that, partner, out of sync, not sharp, and how that reflects in their play compared to that great run they were on, we can dive into it. We've already done that to a degree. But if John Cooper had a magic wand, he'd use it by now. He just said, this has lasted a lot longer than I anticipated, which means that this team collectively, they are just out of sorts. And if you think practice time is going to save them, I've got news for you. They're not going to have much practice time from now until the playoffs begin. So you ask yourself the question, and many fans are, what's it going to take for this team to snap out of it? I think, and we can talk about the game last night, disappointing for sure. Some costly turnovers, the failure to get the puck out of their own zone led to the 4-2 goal. Werenski makes a good play at the blue line to keep it in. Carlisle, though, had a chance to make a play and couldn't. You know that, partner, because we were talking about it. I do think it may take just a few guys to make some plays to get you over that first game, and then guys can kind of maybe build off of that and settle down. I don't know what that looks like. Some may have said maybe it was the Buffalo game, where they had the lead and they gave up 3, and maybe that's true, but somebody needs to make something happen, and it's unusual to see them struggle this much collectively, but that's where they are. And then factor in the opponents they are playing aren't going to give them any easy outs here because they are fighting for a playoff spot. So it's almost like the perfect storm in many ways. Long layoff, they're out of sync, and then the teams they're playing against, while they should be out of sync too, maybe there's more urgency with them knowing that they don't have the cushion that Tampa Bay had or does have to a degree, i.e. Columbus. So I threw a lot out there, partner. We're going to take a lot of questions. They're starting to come in. There are people who are saying, do this, do that. What's going on with this team? In the end, I think they will be fine, but that doesn't mean in the moment it's not uncomfortable right now, and we have more questions than answers.
Well, let me get into last night's game and then kind of touch on some of the things that you talked about. So, the Lightning are 1-6 in their last 7, 6 regulation losses in the last 7 after they started with a win against Toronto coming out of the Olympic break. And their 2 wins since the break have come against Toronto, which is a team that is unlike a lot of the others, basically out of the playoffs. Winnipeg was the other team that's probably going to miss the playoffs. The Lightning didn't win in Winnipeg. So there have been common denominators in the 6 losses in regulation. The penalty kill has really had a tough time since we came out of the break. This was a top 5, certainly, penalty kill through much of the year. I think they've given them now 10 power play goals since the break ended. That number may be low, but I think it's 10 in 8 games. Another problem is they've given up goals in bunches, and we saw that last night. A 1-0 lead became a 2-1 deficit in a 30-second span. Think back to the first game that kind of started this tumble, the game at Carolina. They were down 3-0 before the first TV timeout. Then they came back home and lost 6-2 to Buffalo. The Sabres rattled off 4 goals in the first period, and they came kind of boom, 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 boom. So Winnipeg, near the end of the second period, got 2 fairly quick goals to turn a 0-0 game into a 2-0 Winnipeg lead. So we're starting to see this, like they're giving up a goal, and they're not really being able to batten the hatches, which was not happening. I mean, this is one of many things that they did well during their good stretch. If they took a little bit of a shot from the other team and something didn't happen that was positive for them, they were able to push past it and not let it snowball. I mean, look at the Buffalo game. They gave up 3 goals in the last 10 minutes of the third period. To me, those are goals in bunches. Actually less than that, because the winning goal came with a little 4 minutes left or so, and they were up by 2 at the midway point of the period. So a couple of common denominators there. We saw it last night. Penalty kill, gave up 2. That was basically the difference in the game. They gave up 3 goals in a fairly short period of time in the second period to fall behind by 2. Having said that, I think last night's game was not entirely like all the other losses. This game, to me, resembled their loss in Winnipeg.
Yep.
And the reason I say that is, when we came on the air after the Winnipeg game, at that point the Lightning had lost 4 straight in regulation. That was their 4th straight regulation loss. And I remember saying to you, Greg, to me, this is the worst of the 4. Worse than losing at home to Buffalo, worse than losing in Minnesota, worse than losing at Carolina, where they gave up a lot of chances and they had problems battening the hatches and they gave up lots of goals. The problem they had in Winnipeg, certainly in the first 2 periods, they could not make a play to come out of the defensive zone. They could not execute a tape-to-tape pass, basically. If you can't execute a tape-to-tape pass, you are going to have a very hard time staying in a game at the NHL level.
Correct.
That's why the game in Winnipeg, to me, and it was an opportunity missed, honestly. I think the Jets have done okay since the Olympic break. They've had some close games. I mean, in all likelihood, they're going to miss the playoffs. They're competing, but they're not where Buffalo is right now. They aren't just like rolling over teams. That, to me, was potentially a game for the taking for the Lightning, and they played so poorly with the puck that they really didn't give themselves a chance. That's what I saw last night. Phil saw it too, and we saw it from almost the very beginning of the game. So that was very painful to watch. If you were at the game, if you watched the game, certainly if you listened to us, we were getting very fired up about how off they were. And you can be off in a variety of ways. You can, like you said, out of sync. They have been out of sync. Their coverage has been off, or, a key turnover here, a key turnover there. They could not make a play with the puck last night. And Exhibit A, there were a few exhibits, but Exhibit A to me was the goal that made it 2-1 Columbus. You just gave up a goal. It's 1-1, but they've been leaning on you for a period plus 5 minutes or whatever. Your 1-0 lead is gone. You send the point line out. They start in the offensive zone. They weren't there very long. They lose the puck. It comes down the ice. I'd have to see a replay of it. I'm probably not going to relay this exactly perfectly, but to me it was like, follow the bouncing ball. Like the puck was just bouncing into the Lightning's end. They got 3 guys back. Nobody can get a handle on the puck. It's like a hot potato. And the 3 Columbus guys, Sean Monahan, Kent Johnson, and Connor Garland, are like, okay. Like literally, they just grabbed the puck. Monahan grabbed the puck. He had no business getting that puck. But that is what infected the Lightning's game last night. And Monahan gets a grade A. Vasi makes a fantastic save. And then they can't get the rebound, and Johnson sets up Garland for a second chance. It's in the net. Like, they had no business scoring that goal. I mean, honestly, you got 3 guys back. Nobody can get a handle on the puck. They're there. It's just like a magnet with the opposite attraction. The puck is like getting drawn away from their sticks. And we saw that all night long. They could not settle a puck down to make a play.
Yeah.
The fourth goal, Werenski must have held in 4 clearing attempts during that power play. The fourth one he holds in. The Lightning are pressing a little bit up, the 2 forwards, but they have the 2D back. It was Destu and Carlisle. And they are covering Monahan. But Monahan is behind them. So they're fronting him a little bit. But they have 2 guys back. Werenski just tosses the puck to the front of the net. And I say toss. Like, he didn't wire it. He spun it there. Carlisle's there. He's in the right spot. His stick blade is there. It hits the stick blade and goes under the stick blade to Monahan. Now you're in scramble mode. The 2D react to Monahan. He throws it to Garland, who's behind them. He backhands it in. I mean, these are the sorts of plays that, you know, if you don't make them, you're asking for trouble, obviously. The first goal, Lightning lost a face-off. They worked it around, Columbus did, and Provorov shot it in. It, I believe, deflected off a Lightning player. But the reason why Columbus got the offensive zone face-off, the Lightning had the puck on the previous shift, couldn't execute it clear. That's what we were seeing. And then the other goal that they scored before the empty netter, Columbus has a power play. The Lightning can't clear the zone. They get stuck out there. There's a goal mouth scramble, and Vasi loses his stick. So it's just like, this is just the icing on the cake, right? Like, you got your goalie who's playing quite well and keeping you in it, and probably their best shooter gets in his wheelhouse, and Vasi doesn't have his stick. That's a tough save. That's a tough save on Marchenko with the stick. It's more difficult if you don't have a stick, and so he shoots it in. So those are your 4 goals. But, I mean, this is what we were seeing all night. So I'll repeat myself. It was painful to watch, and I am fully expecting we are going to get a lot of very fired-up fans commenting today about, like, what is going on with this team. I will just say this. The 6 losses have not all looked exactly the same. So the Lightning have not had 6 losses where they can't make a play with the puck in all 6. They actually made quite a few plays with the puck in Buffalo. That's how they scored 7 goals, right? They had other problems, including the penalty kill and the stuff that I talked about. They made plays with the puck in Carolina. They scored 4 goals, right? They certainly made plays with the puck in Toronto, the game they won. So there have been games where they've done some things better than what they did last night. So you got to turn the page. I think this is feeding on itself. It is very hard to get out of this funk that they are in. They did have a weird lineup last night because, you know, Radish wasn't there. So it did affect the first power play. They had a chance to get back in the game at 3-1. They had back-to-back power play opportunities. They didn't score in either. Moser scored right after the second one ended. But you could tell that first unit was out of sync because Hedman's not been on the first unit since like October, late October. So he was trying to get in rhythm. They just weren't in rhythm. So Radish is not, you know, an injury absence. He left to attend his father's funeral. So, I mean, I'm guessing that he will be back and be in the lineup tomorrow. But it was just, I mean, that was out of sync to the nth power, basically, last night. And they were going to have a very, very hard time winning that game, playing the way that they did. And Columbus is playing well. Like, I don't think Columbus overwhelmed the Lightning, but Columbus did what Columbus needed to do to make good plays and take advantage of the Lightning's fumbleitis, which they basically had the entire game. So it's not like they forgot how to play hockey. They are definitely in a rut right now. And the last thing I will say is this, and I am guilty of feeling this way too sometimes, even though I love your expression, don't be a prisoner of the moment. You introduced me to that, and I love it, and I try and remind myself of that. But in the moment, when things are going well, the team that you're following is doing very well, you have this feeling this team is never going to lose again. They're just never going to lose. How do you think Buffalo Sabres fans feel right now? Like, every which way they're winning. 8 in a row. They're on this crazy stretch. And like the Sabres and their, like the Sabres fans, if you had a Sabres fan listening today, I doubt it because we didn't just have a game against Buffalo. But Sabres fans are like, we're never losing another game. I mean, they know that that's not the case, but the confidence of like, we just feel like we're going to take the ice and we could go whatever 17 games left. We could go 17-0 the rest of the way. The Lightning right now, it feels like they have 19 games left. They can't win a game. They're going to go 0-19 the rest of the way. The reality is that is not going to happen. I'm going to say that right now. I will burn. I'm not going to eat this hat, but I will put this hat in the garbage. It's one of my favorite hats. I like how it fits. If they go 0-19 the rest of the way, I will dispose of this hat. I don't think that is going to happen, but it is very natural to feel that way when you see the team struggle and struggle and struggle some more and lose and lose and lose and lose, and you feel like there is no end in sight.
Yeah.
Even though they did have a win against Toronto on Saturday and could have beaten Buffalo. I mean, they were in position to win that game, even though you and I can look and say, all right, their game is not quite where it needs to be. So as far as the playoffs are concerned, they don't need a lot of extra points to get in the playoffs. They don't. I mean, as I've said now, they have 7 games left in this 10-game segment. They get 1 win. They're on playoff pace. You'd like to see them get more than that. If they can go 500 the rest of the way, they're going to finish so comfortably ahead of most other teams that are battling for playoff position. But right now it feels like 500 is a reach. You know, like 9-10 feels like a bit of a reach right now because they're 1-6 in their last 7. So there's no question they need to turn it around. That's what it feels like. Because this rut has lasted, as Coop said, longer than he expected. But you almost have to break it down. What I heard from the players in your clips on the last call was Cirelli especially said, we need to simplify. We just need to simplify our game. And it's almost like you need to break everything down to start building it back up again, which is maybe what Brian is talking about. Don't try and capture how almost perfectly you were playing.
Yeah.
Prior to the break. Just get back to the habits that are going to lead to success. You may lose some, but you're going to win some. And they don't need to win a lot to secure a playoff spot. Then when the playoffs start, yes, you need to elevate. But right now they need to apply a tourniquet here and stop the bleeding. But I will agree with Coop and probably a lot of the fans. Last night was ugly. It was ugly. What did Coop say? It was abnormally bad.
Yeah.
That's the clip that we heard. Yeah, he's right. If they play like that, they could go 0-19.
Sure.
But I don't expect that. I mean, they haven't even played like that in all the games since the break. But last night was an ugly one.
Is this rivaling what we saw at the beginning of the year, you think?
That was, I mean, look, we talk about the beginning of the year. The Lightning competed hard in some games that they lost in overtime. I remember they lost in Detroit and they lost in Washington during that stretch of the whatever it was, the 1-4-2. Is that what it was? The two losses in overtime. They competed. They competed hard. I mean, it's hard to say that they're not competing. They are competing.
They're just not playing well.
They're not.
Or
they're
smart,
not playing,
or whatever that is.
Yeah, they're not. They're not connecting the dots. They're making critical mistakes. They're not playing winning hockey. But and that was true to an extent in the games in Washington and Detroit as well. But I don't know. I'd probably say yes. I can't remember the 2 games that I referenced, the Winnipeg game, and this game. I don't remember another game, even at the start of the year, where they struggled this much to complete a pass. Now, we did have some games at the start of the year where they went like long stretches without a shot. I remember that. The 2 openers that they had at home against Ottawa and New Jersey. I remember coming on the show and being like, they went like 11 minutes without a shot on net. So maybe they did have those puck play problems that I'm not remembering. But this is certainly as bad, if not worse, right now.
I want to make a point to more of the optics, but it's still acknowledging the team isn't playing very well, is that I think this losing streak, or this rut, I should say, is sticking out like a sore thumb because it's almost like this is the beginning of the year and all eyes are on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you're coming off the break and there's kind of a reset. And so everybody's looking at the standings and looking at where teams are. So I think
teams behind the Lightning they aren't all winning every single game, but they're all seem to get points, and like the gap is getting tighter.
So it's everybody's more focused on where everybody is in the standings because of where we are in the season. Had this rut gone middle of the year, 30 games in, we still would be talking about it, but I'm not sure with as much angst.
I don't know. I remember early December, the fans weren't happy. I mean, it was 2-6-1. I mean, the Lightning are 2-6.
I think
early December, to start December, they went 2-6-1. We had a lot of fans comment to us that they were like, they need to do this, they're not doing that, this, that, and the other. Like, losing creates this kind of dialogue.
It does.
But yes, now the pressure is up because
you're
running out of real estate here.
And I feel like, especially coming off the record they had before the break, then you have the reset. I think it's natural to look at the team and say, oh boy, after this break here, they have not been able to get going. Almost like at the beginning of the year when you had, yes. training camp, but it's like, all right, are they going to get going? And I think that's what you're hearing from the players and the coaching staff is that we're okay. We're going to figure this out. We're just in a really bad rut right now. I'm just saying it's more top of mind than it would be if it was buried in late November, early December. And I think even then, you and I were still being pretty level-headed. Yeah, they're not playing well. They're 2-6-2, whatever that record was, or at the beginning of the year. Listen, they're going to be okay. They're going to figure it out. There's a lot of good players. The head coach is a Hall of Famer. They're going to figure this out. Doesn't mean they're going to win the Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. There's enough talent in there to figure it out. So I still believe that. I just think in addition to the legitimate issues that are creeping up, I also think everybody is looking at this closer than they would be in middle December or late December when, it's still more of the dog days. Now everybody's sprinting to the finish line.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, hey, Tampa Bay, you can join the race if you want to. You don't have to sit there at the beginning of the start line and watch everybody go ahead of you. And I think that's where everybody wants to see this keep going. Are there players who are struggling right now? Of course. I don't want to use that as an excuse, the injuries and the shuffling in and out of players, because they've been dealing with that all season long, and they've dealt with it very well. So I think this is a product of Tampa Bay is clearly in a rut, but I also think it's fair to say the teams they are playing coming out of the break, for the most part, have lots to play for and have raised their level. And it's causing some moments here where the Lightning are being put in some positions where it looks awful. That puck looks like a grenade coming off sticks. I mean, the Carlisle play, I keep going back to it just because it stood out, but I'm sure we could name 6, 7, 8 other ones in the game. By the way, Andrei Vasilevsky I thought was really good, but I mean, he loses his stick on one of the goals. Yeah. I mean, how many times does that happen? So Carlisle is in position to make a play.
Yeah, he blocks that puck and shoots it down the ice. It's probably the end of the power play.
Anywhere else.
Yeah.
He just couldn't corral the puck. So, I mean, you're dealing with that. And then it's just, E was mentioning the passes just looked off, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how many times
that was true all game.
How many times was Hedman trying to get it over to Kucherov on just on the one-timers? And it was like for every one he hit, it was like 5 or 6 were...
Well, for the power play, that is the lack of reps for Hedman. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. But even, beyond the power play, 5-on-5, they couldn't make a play out of the defensive zone. And also, they were a little slow to make a play. Like, they'd hold on to it. Columbus player would get in on them, stick in the lane, stick on puck, take it away. It was just one of those nights where the Lightning couldn't do really anything right with the puck that's overstating it. I mean, they did score 2 goals.
Yeah.
And, it kind of followed the Columbus players around a little bit. But, the Blue Jackets deserve credit for that.
And, look, Columbus is a good team. I mean, they beat Tampa Bay 3 times this year. Does that translate into postseason success if they're going to take on Tampa Bay? And this is just more of a talking point than it's going to happen. No, for the reasons you and I discussed, that playoff hockey is different from regular season hockey. But it should at least tell you that Columbus has some guys who can hurt you. There's no question about it. We can talk about goaltending. We can talk about their defensive play. Has it improved under Bones? Sure it has, but I don't know if anybody would look at them and say they're going to lock you down and you have to be really worried about it. But they can score.
They can score.
They can score.
I'll say this, and you can spin it however you want.
Yeah.
The Lightning have played 3 of their worst games of the year against Columbus. Now, maybe Columbus had something to do with that, which is the other side of the coin. But, we've seen the Lightning play 63 games. Yeah, they're in a rut right now. But of the 63, there have been some others. But 3 of the worst, 3 of like the bottom 10 for sure, have come against Columbus. So maybe that's a matchup thing. But I also think it's when the Lightning saw them relative to what else was happening, and the two losses they had when they weren't playing well, and the middle one they were playing extraordinarily well, but they kind of exhaled. And Columbus played quite well in that game. So, I mean, the year that Columbus swept the Lightning in the playoffs, the Lightning went 3-0 against Columbus during the regular season. So, I mean, we see that all the time. The regular season head-to-head matters very little and is very, unhelpful in being predictive of what might happen in a playoff series because the intensity goes way up. I mean, it's just a different ball game. But as we've been saying, like if the Lightning don't play at a certain level in the playoffs, they will lose. Like to win in the playoffs, you need to play at a very, very high level.
100%.
So
100%. It's a fair
it's kind of like, yeah, these games are not going to, be something we look back on in a playoff series, but we know how well teams have to play to win a playoff series, and the Lightning are not playing winning hockey right now. Not in the regular season, and certainly this sort of play wouldn't help them in the playoffs. I guess if we really want to try and like spin it the best we can, they pulled themselves out of this twice this year. 1-4-2 at the start of the year. They went 15-3. 2-6-1 at the beginning of December. They went then 19-1-1, and then another win coming out of the Olympic break. So they've done it twice before. And if you're going to have a rut like this, better, assuming you can get out of it, better to have it now than in the middle of April. You don't want to have something like this infect you in the middle of April as you're getting ready for the start of the playoffs or in the playoffs.
I would agree.
That's probably a little pie in the sky at this point for the fans, but, I also said that, I understand the sentiment that it feels like this team, is going to have a hard time just winning a game at this point.
That is correct. So I think you have to, like all things, keep the level head, understanding that this team is in a rut. Comes the worst time for them, at least in the regular season, but they've built themselves a nice cushion, and they're still playoff bound. And I want people to also take that big picture approach, at least if you've listened to this show over the last handful of years. Mish and I have done the show together. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what any coach says, general manager or players. You and I have seen enough hockey. I know I have. How you finish doesn't necessarily translate one way or the other how well you do in the playoffs. I think that's coaches speak. I think that's players speak. I think the 60-minute hockey thing is player speak. So there are certain things you have to take with a grain of salt. And the goal is, partner, to get into the playoffs. And if that means Tampa Bay, don't anticipate this happening, but they end up being the 8th seed in the East, if they're one of the top 8 teams, they've got a shot. Now, we'll talk about problems they have, because in order for that to happen, they've probably lost a ton of games and aren't playing particularly well. And certainly, I'm not going to poo-poo those red flags. But we have seen enough hockey where you get in and things can change. The Lightning have done that, probably in both ways, in both instances. The goal is to get into the playoffs. This team is still on track to do it. Until the playoffs begin, John Cooper and his team would like to get back on track. I think we all would. But let's not lose sight of the big picture, and please don't mistake slumping towards the end of the year and an early playoff exit, because I don't think those two are always related. Just keep that in mind. Now, that being said, go out and win a game on Thursday.
Yeah.
Go out and win a game on Thursday.
Coop was asked about slumping in Toronto. He's like, the adversity, is it good for you? He's like, losing to Columbus in 2019, did that have an impact on us winning the Cup the next year? You and I believe the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. He's like, I don't know. It's easy to say that after you're through the adversity, but I tell you right now, being in the adversity stinks.
Sure.
Like, it's not fun at all. So they need to move past this and start playing better.
Yeah.
We've been saying that for 2 weeks now.
I would agree with that. At Bolts Radio, if you want to get involved in the conversation, you can. Is there anything else we want to take individually from the game? It was a small bright spot, but I thought on not Hedman's goal, Hedman's shot where Gonçalves tips it. I thought it was a highly skilled play by Gonçalves because he knocks the pass down, stops it for Hetty to do the one-timer, and then is able to deflect it. That is a super talented play, by the way.
Yeah, and look, it's good that he's back. He's one of the players
correct
that missed, a little bit of time due to injury. Nick Paul very well may be the next, or Lilleberg. They're probably around the same timetable, and the Lightning will get Radish back, for the next game. So, look, I think having a steady lineup probably would help too. But there weren't a lot of bright spots last night, Greg. I mean, for Phil not to name one Lightning player a star, he's like, I can't think of one Lightning player.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Maybe Moser, and, looking at that he had a goal and a fight where he didn't like an elbow he took from Sillinger.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was slim pickings for the Lightning in terms of memorable performances last night.
I mean, look, we're also realists here. We understand that we're not going to put lipstick on that pig yesterday. I mean, that was a bad game, and nobody likes the way they're playing. But it's a long season, and part of the analysis with a long season is that you don't overreact one way or the other. I think we saw the Lightning when they are humming along, being one of the elite teams. I don't think that goes away because they're struggling coming out of the break. I think it just probably reinforces that this is a team who can be vulnerable and who has some problems when another team can't expose it. And so let's be fair with the analysis. But, there weren't a ton of bright spots. And now they've got to get back on that horse tomorrow. And look, the rest of the year, really, to right the ship. Right the ship. They've have, 20 games remaining? 18?
19. Yeah.
19? Can I count? Yeah, 19, somewhere in there. I mean, that's where they are. So let's figure it out. Let's go to some questions, partner, unless you want to offer any more analysis. Mytho says, team is really struggling. I know we are still in second, but we are only 6 points from falling out of the wild card too. Have to turn it around, and it's not getting easier. We have the fourth hardest strength of schedule.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of strength of schedule in the closing weeks of the regular season because all games can be tricky. Like the top teams, once they clinch a playoff spot, they sometimes exhale. I mean, they do. That's just the reality of the situation. And those teams would have a very high strength of schedule. And the teams that are playing out the string, sometimes they play loose and they surprise the team. And that would be the opposite. And the teams in the middle, the ones that have the most at stake, are bringing high intensity. So all games down the stretch can be tricky. You have to be ready for them. But yes, the team is really struggling, and they need to be better. I feel like a broken record because we've been saying a lot since the break ended. But last night was, again, to parrot Coop, abnormally bad. Like that was an extremely poor performance. The way it looked because they couldn't do anything with the puck.
Two things here. You want another good saying to live by in life? Two things can be true at the same time. They can be playing poorly right now, but still be okay in the long run. That can happen. This still can be a good team, and they happen to be struggling right now. And so I think a lot of us, are in that space. Mythos also says the defense looks extremely out of sync since the Olympics, and our defensemen are generating more offense than our.
Then he means the forwards.
Our defensemen are generating more offense than our forwards. Yep.
Yeah, when the Lightning. So yes, they are out of sync. I agree with you, Mythos. I'm not being a contrarian here. I'm just saying, the way the Lightning play, they like their defensemen to be involved. They like to get the puck to the point for a shot from a defenseman. Sometimes the shot goes straight in, like for Moser. Sometimes it's tipped, like when Gonçalves scored his goal on a Hedman shot. Sometimes it's a shot, save, rebound goal. So, I mean, Kucherov is usually in the middle of things and gets a lot of points, as he has gotten a lot of points this year. But I don't really put a lot of stock into the fact that, the defensemen are having more points than the forwards. I mean, is that actually true? who scored the goals in Buffalo for them? Moser had one, but, Gergensen scored. Kucherov had two. Hagel had a goal. Perry had a goal. Who scored in the Toronto game? Gensel had a goal. McDonough had a goal that went off a skate. Bjorkstrand scored, right?
Yep.
Perry scored again. Hagel had an empty netter. So, those are all forwards that scored. So, I don't really put too much stock into that. I think the bigger issue is when the team is having problems defensively, and they've been having problems defensively, there are a lot of ways you can have problems defensively. Last night, it was having to do with their inability to really handle the puck, which is going to cause a lot of problems defensively. In some other games, it's been coverage off the rush, or when I say a turnover, I'm not talking about a turnover based on I can't make a play. It's a decisive play. It's just the wrong play, right? You're putting it in an area where it's getting turned over, or you didn't quite react quickly enough to what the other team was doing. And we've seen a lot of that for sure. So these are all, it's complicated.
Yeah.
There's no easy fix to improve your defensive game when your defensive game has gotten out of sync. Because it's not just one thing. Mm-mm. It's lots of things.
And honestly, their best defensemen are out of sync. That, you look to your leaders, right? Your veterans, and that part is true. I think their veterans are struggling right now. I just think they are. Mikey says, sick of the excuses with this team. Well, look,
what do you define as we're not giving an excuse, we're trying to give an explanation.
I think
nobody's saying
the players and coaches, maybe they're coming out and they're saying after the games, we're going to be fine. We're just, maybe it's the schedule. We're playing a lot of games. You're kind of seeing that, but I think it's more, we know what we have in this locker room. We're not playing well. We have to simplify it. We'll be fine. And maybe
when I heard last night, okay, Coop did say, the schedule and all that, but no practice time. But, I heard Cirelli. Cirelli's like, we didn't execute. That's not an excuse. That's owning up to what happened. He's right. They didn't execute. Moser said the same thing. I think Julie asked, how do you improve that? And he's like, it's complicated. He didn't say it's complicated, but he's like, it's a lot of things. It's your decision with the puck. It's winning your puck battles. It's, he listed of 4 or 5 things about how to improve that are all under this bucket of execution. That to me is not making an excuse. Now, maybe the fan heard something else where they're saying this sounds like an excuse to me, but I heard the players being pretty frank and honest about what's going on. At least last night, how they described that game. Coop was the one who, after the Buffalo game, some of the players were looking at the positive, and he was like, we gave up 5 special teams goals. That's not making an excuse. That's explaining what happened. He's like, that's the game. You give up 4 power play goals in a shorty, you're going to lose, basically. Maybe it's semantics, Greg. I don't know.
Yeah, but who knows?
I think that what if I can read into what the fan is really saying is the fan is tired of the losing.
Right.
The fan is tired of the team maybe answering with an excuse or answering with an explanation, but not improving. And maybe that's what the fan is tired of. Show me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Mikey also says starting to flirt with the danger of missing the playoffs.
So the math experts probably could come in and say, yeah, the percentages are still very, very low that would happen. But yes, it is possible if every team below the Lightning that is in contention to get in the playoffs just starts winning and winning and winning, and the Lightning can't get any points, yes, they will get past. The likelihood of that happening, though, again, don't look at the point gap and take that to the bank. We are running out of runway here. The Lightning have 19 games left. They have more than many of the other teams. I repeat, if they have 1 win in the next 7 games, they will be at playoff pace, which would mean they need to get 12 and 10 in games 71 to 80 and then a couple of extras. I still think 96, 97, 98 is going to get you in. Because if you look at where 9 and 10 are, Columbus and Ottawa, they really have to, like, they need to play at a very, very high clip to get to that number. And that's assuming all the other teams also get to that number. So, yes, mathematically it is possible, but I think the math experts who can, like, absorb all of this would probably tell you the probability of the Lightning actually missing the playoffs is still very, very low. But as we've said, I've certainly said it, when they were at 80, stuck at 80, I'm like, they're not going to get into the playoffs with 80 points. They're not going to get into the playoffs with 82. 96, 97, probably fine. 98, 99, they're in. That I feel confident about. You get to triple digits, you're in. I would be shocked if a team is at 100 points and misses the playoffs.
I mean, look, you can always say first time for everything, but
that would mean that every team that is in contention just like goes on some crazy run. And it's also taking into account all the head-to-heads would basically have to go to overtime, right? Yeah. Like Montreal and Ottawa, I think they play tonight. If that game doesn't go into overtime, one of those teams is losing in regulation. And we know we have a lot of divisional games, the Lightning certainly do, down the stretch. So these teams are going to be playing each other.
Yeah.
The Lightning have 2 left. I mean, you can look at it one of 2 ways. It's an opportunity for the Lightning, or fans are like, the way they're playing, these teams are going to catch them. Yeah. But they have 2 left against Boston. They have 1 left against Buffalo. They have 2 left against Ottawa. They have 2 left against Detroit, including the one tomorrow. And they have 2 left against Montreal. Those are big, big games. Yes, I mean, do you think the Lightning are going to lose every single one of them? I mean, if they take care of some business, the team that they take care of business against is going to have a harder time making up that ground.
Dan says, so to move on to the next game, what's the best way to break out of the slump like this? How do you fix your game when you're fighting the puck?
Well, sometimes a fresh start helps. Team had a practice scheduled, and people might be like, why did they cancel it? Apparently, there are some mandated off days in the CBA every month, and the Lightning needed to take this day as an off day to satisfy that. But you know what? Sometimes getting away does help. It's almost like, settle down. It's not, and I said this earlier in the show, it's not like they forgot how to play hockey. These guys have been playing hockey their whole lives. They know how to make a play with the puck. That's why games like that are very, very rare.
And so I also think...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to... I also think part of that is just the confidence. Sometimes your confidence isn't where it needs to be, and you're fighting the puck. I mean, it happens. Even to the most elite athlete in the world. Look, we saw it in the Olympics. You see guys and gals who train for 4 years who are at the best at what they do. And sometimes in a moment you don't perform your best, and it's unfortunate. And maybe your confidence isn't where it needs to be. You know, eventually you get back on that horse and you figure it out. That's what being an elite athlete usually entails. They're mentally strong, but that doesn't mean they don't have confidence issues at times. Happens all the time in sports. Yeah. It's the ones who usually bounce back and stay within themselves and stay within the process that allows them to be consistently good or great. The Lightning, for the most part this year, think about all the injuries they've had to experience. You've got to be mentally tough to deal with that, and they have. So I think right now it's just a rut. All teams go through it, maybe even a couple of times out of the year you go through these things. Where do you finish once the season ends, meaning the regular season? Are you one of the 8 in the dance? And if you're one of the 8 in the dance, I can tell you this right now, what you did in the regular season means nothing. Means nothing. It really doesn't. They limped into the playoffs. I would hope people would look at this and say, you know what? They're going to reset. They've got new life. And honestly, it doesn't matter if they lost 8 out of their last 10 getting into the postseason. They're in, and anything can happen. So, Local Nomad says, Lightning are taking too many minor penalties, especially in key moments, which keeps Cooch and Point off the ice.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, when you're giving up lots of power play goals, it usually coincides with you taking too many penalties. Now, they only took 4 last night, which, it's a manageable number, but they took 2 fairly early in the game, and I thought that started to it precipitated them unraveling more. I know they got through both kills, but it allowed Columbus to have the puck a lot. They got their goal, but their goal was against flow of play. They only had 4 shots on net. I mean, they were struggling with their puck play in the first.
Yeah.
And I think it got worse after they took those back-to-back penalties. I mean, Garland had 2 goals, and he had a breakaway, basically an in-alone chance on a 2-on-1 where he got the puck. That was another, tough play for Carlisle. He tried to dump it in from the red line. I don't know if his stick blade went over the puck or it hit someone, but it turned into a 2-on-1. And I think it was Monahan slid it, and Garland had a in alone from the kind of top of the circles right down the middle of the ice. Vasi stopped him. We were seeing plays like that in the first period. They weren't all breakaways, but I mean, we were seeing the Lightning fighting the puck in the first period.
Carl says, Cirelli has been pretty cold for a long while now. I know he was injured before the Olympics, but he hasn't had a goal since December. Wonder if it's affecting Hagel, and also wonder if he's not 100%.
Cirelli has not gotten a lot of chances either to score. Now, he's chipped in a couple of assists the last 2 games. But yeah, I mean, I think that if he is your 2C, you're going to look to have him provide some offense. That's fair. I didn't realize it had been since December, but
yeah, it's the other thing too. Look, I know Cirelli has scored 20+ goals a year.
yeah.
I think you judge him by that in part. You also judge him by hard on pucks and those type of things. And it's been a little off recently. You want to attribute that to being in and out of the lineup, dealing with some injuries. That's fine. Is that impacting Hagel's play? Maybe. Don't know. That's fair too if you want to call it out. I mean, we can't sugarcoat it. Production is production. Your stats are what they are.
Yeah.
In many ways. So I acknowledge it.
The bigger issue though has been defense, not offense.
I would agree with that. I don't discount that as all. Joe says Columbus seems to have our number. Could Bones coaching them and knowing the Lightning's player help?
Well, the Lightning have had success against Rick Bowness coach teams since Bones left the Lightning. And the first meeting, Dean Evison was the coach. I actually feel Columbus has played well against the Lightning for the last several years when Evison was the coach.
Yeah.
What I learned from talking to the Columbus people last night was Bowness has helped them get better defensively as a team. Even though we were talking about it on the show yesterday, they had a couple of games they'd given up 5 goals in back-to-back games with overtime losses. But compared to where they were, the metrics kind of show they're cutting down on dangerous chances against. And he knows defense. I mean, that's his bread and butter as a coach is kind of like how to get a team to defend. He ran the penalty kill when he was with the Lightning. He ran the defenseman, which is not, team defense is more than just the defenseman, but that was his area of control, right? When he was an associate coach with the Lightning. And he's got a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah.
I mean, I said it yesterday. I've said it for a little while now. I do believe Columbus gets into the playoffs. I don't know who they're going to supplant. It would seem that it might be a Metro team, but the Islanders and Penguins are kind of hanging in there. I mean, the Islanders are on a long road trip, and they did okay. But the teams that are closest to Columbus that Columbus could catch are Pittsburgh and the Islanders.
So Pittsburgh, I think, would be an interesting one because they had a few games there where Crosby and Malkin have not been in the lineup. But they've been getting some points.
They had a rally, a come-from-behind win to beat Boston.
And then in Carolina, they're down 4-2. They pull the goaltender, and they get 2 goals when they never win in Carolina. That's a tough place for them. And they've been doing it without Crosby and Malkin. Now, Crosby, I think, is supposed to be coming back soon. Malkin, I think, is serving.
Well, he's got his 5-game suspension.
3rd game of his 5-game suspension. So they're on a brutal stretch here, and so they're kind of keeping their head above water. If there's a team who could come back, it may be them in terms of somebody else jump frogging or leapfrogging them.
And it could be a wild card team. And the fan who said they're only 6 points up, I mean, it could be the Lightning. Columbus could get more points than the Lightning. It's possible. as much as I like Columbus, and I'm going to stick with what I just said, I think they're going to get in. A month where you have 17 games, they haven't lost a game in regulation since the first game out of the Olympic break. So however many wins they have, 4 or 5 and 3 overtime shootout losses. So they've pointed in every game but one since the break, and that one loss was the first game out of the break. Actually lost in Boston. They outshot the Bruins by a wide margin, but lost in regulation.
Yeah.
So the Bruins were kind of in their crosshairs because they were occupying the second wild card. And they have 2 head-to-heads left with the Bruins, both in Columbus. But they have a brutal schedule. 17 games in 31 days. At some point, you would figure it will catch up with you.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, more power to them. But it's just like, are they going to go the rest of the way with no regulation losses? You know, it's kind of like, are they going to just keep munching? All these teams just keep munching points. Like, eventually, you get head-to-heads. You know, some teams lose. Detroit lost a crushing game last night. It'll be interesting to see how they're affected by that. They had a 3-2 lead with 90 seconds left, and they lost in regulation. Carter Verhaeghe scored 2 goals. That's a killer loss for Detroit. So teams are going to lose that are in the mix here. It's not only going to be the Lightning.
What else do we have from our loyal audience? This one comes from B-Love. This too shall pass. It's a different lineup from the start of the season, but I have faith they turn it around. It might be time to think about matchups instead of first in the division.
Well, we appreciate your confidence there, or belief. I do think it's a little early to think about matchups. I think right now it's thinking about playing better and getting the points that you still need to get to secure a playoff spot.
Let me go to Basil. Our good friend Basil says, living in Ohio, I'm forced to watch the Blue Jackets broadcast on cable TV because streaming services are blacked out. Between periods, Steve Mears gushed about how much he enjoys coming to Tampa because he gets to chat with Phil Esposito and the great Dave Mishkin.
Yeah, we chatted with
Steve
before the
Mears.
game. Well, thanks for the shout-out, Mearsy.
How about that?
He's had an interesting trajectory of a career. He started with the Islanders on radio.
Yeah.
And at one point, did they simulcast? They made a change with the. They've had a few iterations with the Islanders. They did. Maybe they would have simulcast, or they did something. Eventually, Chris King did color with Steve Mears. Then Chris King did play-by-play. And they were on like the Hofstra station. So, I mean, they had some issues with the radio station, but Chris King did the games play-by-play after Steve Mears left until this last year when they said, we're simulcasting, and then they did an about-face. But Chris King's not doing the games anymore.
Which is
so
ridiculous. But,
so Steve
whatever.
Mears is from Pittsburgh. He went home to Pittsburgh and was doing some broadcasting. Yes. He was doing some broadcasting for the Penguins, but not in the booth. At that point, you still had Mike Lang. And I think Steigerwald was doing the games on TV. And Steve was staying busy. I think he did some World Junior Championships on TV. And eventually he got one of the broadcast positions with the Penguins.
Yeah.
I think he went right to TV. I don't think that he started on radio.
I think Mike always had stayed in radio.
Yeah, Mike stayed in radio.
No.
So, they decided to make a change, the Penguins, 2 years ago. And that coincided with the opening in Columbus. Columbus had an opening on TV.
Yep.
So Steve went there. So he's been with the Islanders, the Penguins, and the Blue Jackets. That's weird because the Penguins and Blue Jackets are rivals. So he kind of went from one team to the other. But he loves it, Columbus. I mean, he told me
Columbus is a great town.
Yeah,
Columbus. I mean, everything you hear about Columbus, and I've been there a few times. I mean, it's definitely a good spot. Let me get this read in tonight's. I want you to enjoy some Reif Rum. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reif Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reif Rum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. Do we want to try and get somebody from Detroit on tomorrow, do you think? Can we get somebody?
If they're at they should be at the skate. I didn't get anyone on Columbus because nobody was there yesterday. They were given the morning off. We'll see.
I should have.
I mean, I got to look at this, and I confess I have not checked, but I know Gibson got hurt recently, And Dylan Larkin got hurt recently.
Yes, I did see Dylan Larkin was banged up.
So they're battling. I mean, those are two of their best players for sure.
Yeah.
But the Lightning can't worry about who the other team has in the lineup or doesn't have in the lineup. They need to get back to playing.
I mean, you're so right. At this point, it doesn't even matter who you're playing.
Yeah.
Now, if you were playing Buffalo or the Florida Panthers, yes, a little more incentive there because of the history and what's been happening. Actually, I had a question from a fan. My answer, by the way, up front is no, but I get where they were coming from. Is Buffalo the new Florida in terms of the rivalry? And I think that's a ways off. I think
it's a little ways off, yeah.
I can understand where they're coming from, though.
Well, I think
the bad blood and, all that stuff.
I think based on some of the chatter that, apparently is going out there, and I try not to get too involved in this, there's a lot of talk between the fan bases based on what happened on Sunday. And some of that is because Buffalo has not had recently these like high intensity, high stakes games with all these fights, right? And a little bit of history there, like we spelled it out on Monday. The Dahlin situation, what happened in the game in Tampa. The Lightning weren't happy with Dahlin. Now the Sabres are not happy with Hagel because Hagel went after Dahlin. That's how this thing starts to build, but it's basically a couple of games.
Sure.
The Lightning and Panthers have met 4 times in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Going back to 2021. So I think it's in a different category.
I do too. But I love
at this point
the blood.
But look,
boiling.
It would be a great if they do meet in the playoffs, it would be a very compelling matchup.
Our good friend Bolts fan Syracuse tweeted us last night on the post-game show that indicated that Dahlin had some issues with teammates last year, and she posted the video. Was it the video or no, an article where Dahlin and Krebs apparently fought
in a practice or something.
In a practice, yes, because Dahlin went. Apparently, it was a cheap shot, and that's what happened. So who knows? These things come out. Hockey players, as we know, partner, do not forget.
Right.
Do not.
I think Krebs is pretty down with what Dahlin's doing right now, though. I mean, he's having a terrific season. Dahlin, I'm talking about. Krebs is having a good year, too.
Our good friend Anthony, you can't say now that you're not worried, Mish. D-Core plays much worse. Neutral zone gaps and breakouts a lot worse. Just slow. F3 needs to provide more support. Team gets rattled by bad officiating.
So, did I ever say that I was worried? Did you say you were worried? I'm not sure I ever used the word. I never said that I was not worried. I didn't even use that language. What I said was the math is very much in the Lightning's favor. If the Lightning do not win another game, they will not make the playoffs. Okay, Anthony? So I do expect that they are going to win some games here between now and the end of the regular season, and they really don't need to win a lot of games to get into the playoffs. I will also say that if they do not play better than they are playing now, they will not go far in the playoffs. So I have no control over whether they play better or not. So I don't know that I'm worried or not worried about it. I am spelling out for you the reality of the situation. I am also saying that they have had these ruts before and they've gotten out of them. Now, will they get out of this one and raise their level to the point that it needs to be at? I have no idea. So I guess I take a little exception, no offense, Anthony, to how you the context in which you presented that. I would put it a little differently. I think there is reason to be concerned with how the Lightning are playing. Yeah. I think we have evidence that the team has played a lot better than this for much of the season. And so if you choose to, like the fan that we had who said, I have belief, that fan is kind of putting their chips on that side of the table. Whereas other people are like, this is just, they're not going to be able to stop the bleeding here and they're just going to tumble out of the playoffs. And they're putting their chips on that side of the table until they see otherwise. And that's, every fan's prerogative. That's the beauty of it, right? Following a team, it's a roller coaster ride.
I'm not going to speak for you. I don't get worried. I don't get worried that this team's not going to make the playoffs. I don't get worried that the team's not playing particularly well. You get worried a little bit in the playoffs if you're facing elimination or if you see, look, I'm down 3-1. You can start to say, that's going to be a tough hill. The odds, the percentages aren't good. I can't get worried about a team who's still in a playoff spot in the East. I know they're not playing well. I can't go there. I've been pretty consistent about that. Let's wait and see what happens.
So you're the one who said I'm not worried.
Maybe it was me. Maybe it was
Yeah.
me. Yeah, maybe I'm not. But I mean that's been pretty consistent throughout. We've been doing these shows. But look, that's why we take opinions. Get them on the air. We'll talk.
We had
about
a variety of opinions
love it.
today. Yeah.
I love it. We'll do more of this tomorrow. We will be live, and another important game, especially for the team they're
divisional
playing.
game.
Yeah,
It
these
is
divisional
interesting.
games.
So the Lightning go out west next week, but when you look at their remaining schedule, they have a lot of divisional games left.
Yeah.
And in that batch of divisional games, I kind of spelled them out when I said how many they had left against each of these teams. They're done with Toronto and Florida. So the two teams who are at the bottom of the division, the Lightning are done with. So all of the other games they have within the division are against Ottawa and the teams that are in the top 8.
Sure.
And Ottawa's close to the top 8. So those are very, very big games, including the one tomorrow.
Very big games. Very big games. All right. We'll do it tomorrow. Partner, great job. And we'll get it going with our audience.
Yeah.
Again.
Talk to you
Good
tomorrow.
stuff. Thanks to Steve Ersnick. Thanks to all of you for listening and participating. Keep doing it. Tell your friends, tell your families to listen to the show. We always appreciate you guys. And come playoff time, we're going to be all over it. You've been listening to Power Lunch right here on Lightning Radio.